Check out that 4x4. That is hot.
Okay, back her up.
Someday, Jennifer. Someday. Wouldn't it be great? Take that truck up to the lake. Throw a couple of sleeping bags in the back. Lie out underneath the stars.
Stop it.
What?
Does your mom know about tomorrow night?
No, get out of town. My mom thinks I'm going camping with the guys. Well, Jennifer, my mother would freak out if she knew I was going up there with you, and I get the standard lecture about how she never did that kind of stuff when she was a kid. I mean, look, I think the woman was born a nun.
She's just trying to keep you respectable.
Well, she's not doing a very good job.
Terrible.
Save the Clocktower! Save the Clocktower! Mayor Wilson is sponsoring an initiative to replace that clock. 30 years ago, lightning struck that clock tower, and the clock hasn't run since. We at the Hill Valley Preservation Society think it should be preserved exactly the way it is, as part of our history and heritage.
There you go, lady. There's a quarter.
Thank you. Don't forget to take a flyer.
Right.
Save the clock tower!
Dear Daddy, I thought maybe I'd try reaching out to you, see if we could connect. It turns out the woman who I thought was Mother was nothing but an innocent stand-byer who, if you ask me, is a real crabapple. Apparently she's not into my constant badgering of her. Oops, honest mistake. Anywho, I know for a fact that you are my father. I remember when I was a small child, 7, 8 years old, and you came home and said, "Yep, the paternity test proves it. I'm his dad." And I was standing right there. And what's funny is it seemed like, it was only 5 or 6 years later where you had the paternity test done again, which, okay, I was getting older. Maybe we didn't look exactly alike, but it turns out blood don't lie, and you are the daddy. It was probably my 30th birthday where you had the third paternity test, which really started to hurt my feelings. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to talk to you for a while, but Daddy, look where I am now, sitting at my kitchen table, typing a letter to you, in hopes that you will listen to me talk about Back to the Future for 31 straight days. I make nothing but great decisions, Dad, and I owe it all to you. Love, your son, the other one, Michael. March 16th, 2021.
1, 2, 3.
Marchy McFly, Marchy McFly. Marchy McFly is Marchy McFly. Marchy McFly is Marchy McFly.
Every day in March I'll be doing the same thing, watching my favorite movie. Back to the Future once a day all month long, 31 straight days for me. Great Scott, this is heavy. It's called
Day 16. We've reached the precipice. I think that's the word. We reached the top of the mountain, also known as the mountaintop. The Paramount? I don't know. I'm thinking of Paramount Pictures. It's all downhill from here, which you've probably learned by listening to this. But what I mean is we've hit the halfway point. We've reached the top, and now we're walking down. It's all part of the journey. The journey to just celebrate this movie constantly. 31 straight days. And guess what I did this morning? Bright and early with breakfast. Because I had the day off, I watched Back to the Future. Then I took my dog to the beach. We had a nice dog walk. It was pleasant. But of course, I didn't get to record till almost 9 o'clock tonight. So here we are talking about Back to the Future again. And guess what? I have some notes. I have some things I want to talk about, and specifically a person I want to talk about. But some of these notes, I'm still finding new things. I'm still noticing that Ask Mr. Foster, the travel agency, no matter how many businesses have left for dirty bookstores and porn theaters, Ask Mr. Foster Travel Agency is still in business in 1985. I wrote down it survived what Goldy Wilson did to Hill Valley's downtown. I only say that about the downtown area because over where, over in John F. Kennedy Drive, a block past Maple, where Doc's garage is, it looks like a pretty basic cityscape. There's a Burger King, and there is other stores. Like seems like a real setting. And then of course the Universal backlot is what we see in Back to the Future. I wonder. I haven't watched Gremlins in some time, but I wonder how much of the Clocktower we see in Gremlins, which was the year prior. But of course, it's not Glens Falls. That's a real place. I can't think of what the town in Gremlins is now, and it's bothering me. I'll have to do that in Grenlember when I watch Gremlins. I'm not doing that. Never mind. So yes, Ask Mr. Foster, still kicking it. And I wonder if any of the stores are the same too. That's funny. Like, did they change all the storefronts, or are these just the Universal stores? And Ask Mr. Foster could be in Gremlins too. That would be fun to see. I wrote down here Lorraine's look after she said, "It was at that moment I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life with him." It's actually just a great little subtle acting moment because she's a little buzzed, obviously, there's a Bud Light that's close to her. I don't think it's Linda's because she's not of age yet. And right, the drinking age is 21 at that point. And so she had that, plus she had the vodka that she was enjoying. So she was a little buzzed, but she was getting romantic, talking about the old Enchantment Under the Sea dance. And she's like, "It was at that moment I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life with him." And he's like, and everyone's deadpan. Just you cut back, and they're all like that. But she's mostly like, "Oh, what a decision I made." It's really brief. It's just a moment. It's just a subtle, reaction. Good acting is reacting, right? What else did I write here? Oh, did I say this already? I think I said this already. Jennifer risked her tardiness for Marty. Like, she stood outside and she's like, if it's 4 tardies in a row, you're gonna be in trouble. And she got a tardy slip herself. But I was like, if my wife was running late, I'd be like, "You should have been here on time, and I'll pick you up after detention. Okay, I love you, but there's a reason." What am I saying? If my wife is running late, my wife's always running late. When my wife is running late, don't tell her I said that, please. There is a running joke in this movie. It's funny. I think about the sequels, and I don't want to talk about them, but they bring up something that the way they bring it up, it makes it seem like you should have known about this the whole time. And then they have it running throughout the next 2 movies. It always bothered me about the sequels. I'll talk about that more next year, but I think you know what I'm talking about. But in this movie, I do like that there are the running joke of Marty's vest, his puffy vest, which if you see it now, you wouldn't. I don't think you'd think of it as retro '80s. You'd probably think of it as Marty McFly, but that was just a style that kids wore then. Cool teens, right? I mean, I was 8 years old, so I wasn't hanging out with any cool teens. If I was, then obviously, I would have been at court a few weeks later, testifying against them. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the joke about the quote unquote life preserver. First, we have Lou say, "What'd you jump ship?" Then we have Biff's lackey, who says, "Dork thinks he's going to drown. Check out this guy's life preserver." Then we have his grandmother, Mrs. Baines, who Della. I keep wanting to say Stella, but it's not. Is it? Della. I ran. One of those kids jumped in front of my car again because remember, Mr. Baines runs over children constantly. But she's like, "Oh, you in the?" She talked about him being in the service or in the Marines, Navy. Obviously, Jesus Christ. He's like, "No, I'm in the Coast Guard." And I looked it up. The Coast, because I don't know things. It's like, how long has the Coast Guard been around? It's been around since the 1700s, but I think it said 1951 where it was officially called the Coast Guard. I don't know. Anyway, and Doc did make a reference because he says, "You wanted me to make a donation to the Coast Guard Youth Auxiliary." So he at least somehow made the connection of the Coast Guard. But that's when Marty's like, "No, I'm from the future. I came here in a time machine you invented." Anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But I just thought that was a fun moment. I wrote down here, maybe George thinks Marty is an alien. This is one of those things where if I wrote this on Reddit, someday someone on Mental Floss would make an article about it. Never mind the fact that he resembles the kid. That you can take that away. You can get rid of that and be like, wow. I know Family Guy had made fun of it. Like, he looks a lot like the kid you wanted to name Marty. But let's say, we go with the fact that they don't remember, when they have a kid 13 years later, and then he starts to look like him, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years later. I can understand that because you can have kids that, oh, wow, he reminds me of this kid. But the fact that at 8 years old, Marty lights a fire to the living room carpet, just as that other Marty predicted, that should have been the red flag that maybe George is thinking, oh, my goodness, that Marty was Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan. Not time traveler, because, just someone with like psychic knowledge. Not necessarily. That's why I thought maybe he's an alien, because then he went on to write, stories, science fiction stories about beings from another world coming down. I wrote that down. It's not a good one. I'm not specifically proud of it. And if I didn't say this before, I have to say that I can't say enough how impressed I am by Michael J. Fox's skateboarding. So I looked it up, and there's an article on CBR.com, which I think is Comic Book Resources or something like that. It says, did Michael J. Fox have to learn to skateboard for Back to the Future? This is from 2019. It says Michael, the urban legend was he had to learn how to skateboard, and there was something in the Wikipedia that said he had to learn how to skateboard. And they're calling that poppycock. They're saying it says that Michael J. Fox actually was skateboarding as a kid. He said he got a skateboard as a gift for his 15th birthday back in 1976. It was the board I learned to skateboard on before I got to use some of my old tricks in Back to the Future. See, so he knew how to skateboard, and you could just tell. Now, he didn't do everything. He had a stunt double by the name of Charlie Crowell, who was a little shorter than Marty, but very similar as far as, stature and look. So he did the real tricky stuff, like, jumping through the car. But you could tell that Michael J. Fox was really doing a lot of this stuff. Hanging off the back of Jeeps, the guy with the Mountain Dew hat. That's another thing. I thought it would be fun, a fun cosplay, like if you go to a Comic-Con, would someone recognize you if you wore the exact same thing as that dude in the Jeep? With maybe you have a Jeep backpack and a green Mountain Dew hat, and I think it's like a red plaid shirt. I'll have to look tomorrow, and those big cool glasses. Oh, I'm actually looking at the picture right here. It's not a red plaid shirt. It's like white and black plaid shirt and a good solid pair of dungarees. if I saw that kid on the back of my truck, he's probably used to it. Like, oh God, it's the McFly kid again. But I would have stopped and been like, get the F off my Jeep, dude. If you fall off, you're going to die. And I'm assuming when that filming was happening with the camera and everything, he's just standing on a platform. But there are scenes where you are seeing Michael J. Fox on the back of a skateboard. The actor you brought in that Family Ties producers didn't want to let out, a TV show is hinging on him. He's on the back of a skateboard that he could slip. He could slip and smash his face. But I'm talking about the little things where he is. Now I'm assuming it's when the guy skates into Lion Estates, and right at the beginning when he sees the wrecked car. I'm assuming that's the stuntman. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I'm assuming. You could look, he almost falls. Like he wiggles a little bit. There's no way they were letting him do that. But skating up to the house, skating up to the school, leaving docks and going right out into, out of the Burger King parking lot, next to the Burger King parking lot, and getting attached to a car there, in the downtown area. He's there, and even like showing up at the mall, he skates down the hill. That hill is not a big hill. That would be like frightening to me if I was on my skateboard. I'd be like, and I used to be able to skateboard, not good, but I could use it. It was a mode of transportation. I'm sure I've talked about this before. Like I could kick and go really pretty fast to go down the street, to play street hockey, down at Ryan's house. But that was it. That was my. And if I wiped out, dude, I would have been toast. But that was all I could do. I couldn't do tricks. I couldn't go up, hills, down hills. But it was good mode of transportation. But anyway, him skating down that little hill, and just he was just so confident in his physical movements that I just had to say how impressed I am, or am, by his comfort and believability on the skateboard. I thought that was pretty good. Pretty good. Now, I want to talk about the actress who plays the Clocktower woman. I don't even know if she has a character name. Clocktower Lady is what her title name is. The woman's name is Elsa Raven. Elsa Raven, born on September 21st, 1929. She actually just died this past November 2nd, 2020. Elsa Rabinowitz, known professionally as Elsa Raven. She was a character actress who she was in a bunch of things you've seen and you didn't even know it, besides Back to the Future. She was in Titanic. She played Ida Strauss. That's like a pretty famous character, like name on that. In the Titanic lore, I looked it up. Ida Strauss was a woman who stayed on the ship with her husband, and they went down with the ship. If I was Ida, I would have been Ida here, and I would have jumped on the boat and said, "I'm gonna miss you, husband. Goodbye. Hold your breath. We'll try to come back." She acted all the way up to 2011. She was in a couple movies I never heard of, but let's see. I'm gonna just go through her really quick. She was in the Amityville Horror, Fatso with Dom DeLuise, The Postman Always Rings Twice, Twilight Zone, the movie, The Nurse Number 2, in the Kick the Can, remember that? Ali Ali Oxenfree, and all the old people became young again. It was, if you don't remember that movie, there's a kid who's like a creep, who like has powers. It's pretty scary. What else has she been in that I know? Indecent Proposal, Citizenship Student. She was trying to become a citizen in Decent Proposal in the 90s. So I actually thought they olded her up, and that's that's a term I'm using right now, meaning I thought they did the same thing where they made her look a little older. They did not. She actually reminds me of Catherine Hahn, who you know right now from WandaVision. I feel like I got to clear my throat. Don't I sound awesome? But I also feel like I have to clear my throat. But I love the way I sound. And I just did clear my throat, and I think I still sound pretty sultry today. Excellent. So, Titanic. She's in a bunch of different things. And here's the cool thing. TV is where it's at. So on TV, she was on Quincy, The A-Team, Highway to Heaven, General Hospital, Amen, Wise Guy. Here we go. Get a Life, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Murphy Brown, Seinfeld, Third Rock from the Sun, ER, Everybody Loves Raymond, and of course, the classic Freddy's Nightmares. But guess what she was also in? She was another Back to the Future actress or actor who was in an episode of Family Ties in the 1986 episode, The Checkmate. It said episode 84. This is what I'm reading on Wikipedia. She played Mildred Atkins. Now, she was born in 1929, so I'm going to do the math in my head. Ready? Let's do this. 39, 49, 59, 69, 79. That's 50. So she was 55 when she was making this movie. She looked about 65, 75. I mean, I'm just thinking about people I know now that are in their 50s, and it's like, my goodness, times they are a-changin'. But she passed away at the age of 91. 91. And she did have a are you kidding me? She has a link to her her obituary in the New York Times, and you click it and it just goes to the to like the movie section. They actually got rid of her thing. That is not good. Now, folks, if you ever want to find an old web page, we're gonna do it right now and see if we can find it together. We have time. The Internet Archive. Go to archive.org. There's a thing called the Wayback Machine. You put the URL in there, the web address. This one is. I'm going to make sure I copy link address, paste it in there. This thing keeps an archive of the internet, so it just scans the internet and saves versions of web pages. And believe me, I've used this like to save my butt a few times with work when I accidentally save something or I overwrite something. I'm like, oh crap, I need to find an old version of this. Go to the old Internet Archive, and hopefully they've taken an archive of the page. And are you kidding me? There's one link to it on November 13th. Now, wait a minute. Why would it be on November 13th? She didn't. Oh no, November 2nd is when she died. November 13th is the only archive they have of it, and it's gone. This is ridiculous. But alas, if you search the New York Times, you can find that her obituary is still available. It's got the unfortunate URL that it says, okay, New York Times, blah, 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 then /Elsa-Raven-dead. I mean, okay. I mean, technically that's correct, but that's a little harsh, don't you think? It says here, she built a steady career of every woman roles, perhaps none of them made a bigger impression than her performance as Clocktower Lady. She died on Monday at her home in Los Angeles. She was 91. So I have to be honest, I looked it up because I was like, oh my God, she didn't die of COVID, did she? She didn't die of coronavirus, did she? She did not. Hopefully she died of being 91, if you know what I mean. Like, she just kind of, time took her, and she went peacefully. Boy, this is morbid. But you know what I'm going to do? For Elsa's sake, I'm going back to her Wikipedia page, and I'm going to edit that reference, because the reference is wrong. So I'm going to go down, all the way down to the bottom. How do I do that? You are not, I don't care if I'm logged in. This list is generated by template and for now can only be edited in source mode. Come on. Well, anyway, I'm going to edit it because I'm going to try to edit it. I'm not going to bother you guys anymore. She is the Clocktower Lady. She is the linchpin of the whole movie. The entire movie is on her back because she forces Marty to take that piece of paper, which, of course, Jennifer writes "I love you" on, which is the only real reason he keeps it in the first place. But the fact that she kept talking about the clock tower is why Marty knows when lightning will strike. Now, I made a little mistake the other day in some joke or something where I thought that Goldy Wilson was you trying to use your taxes to save the clock tower. What I understand now, and I was reading it, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's what she says. He wants an initiative to replace the clock tower,
and she wants to have it fixed. So that's what they're saving. They want to restore to all their glory. Isn't that? Aren't you glad I cleared that up? And I'm pretty sure I'm right on this now. Of course, I'm going to figure it out and check back in tomorrow when I watch it yet again for the 16th straight. 17th. Oh my goodness, I almost lost a day. Can you tell I'm tired? Can you tell I'm done? We did it, folks. We made it through day 16. We'll be back tomorrow with another very special episode. I have a very special guest who I've known for, golly, I'm almost 30 years, right? In high school. All the way back in high school. 30 years ago. Just like 30 years before Marty went, I don't know, you know what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to relate it to Back to the Future. It's funny. I watched another movie today. I watched the Lego 2 movie for this podcast, but another version of this podcast. And they had 2 Back to the Future jokes in it. One, a character needed to travel back in time, and so he stole a bunch of time machines, including the DeLorean. He's like, "Excuse me, Doc." And there was Doc Brown there, and he took the DeLorean. And of course, spoiler alert, that character ends up not ever happening due to the course of the story. And so he disappears, much like Marty McFly is disappearing. And they do a fun little thing with that. And now I'm officially done with day 16. Whew. We did it, my friends. We did it. Now listen, you know where to find me. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Geek Mentality. The website is fansnotexperts.com. The Facebook page is fans.experts. The Hotmail is fansnotexperts.email.notreally@hotmail.com. And the theme song, well, this is the theme song. This is my podcast. I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe, 'cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time, and I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode.
Fans not experts. What are you looking at, butthead?